The midnight sky over Johannesburg wept without warning. Rain hammered the streets, turning the city's golden lights into blurred halos of despair. Outside the towering iron gates of a palatial estate in Sandton, two shadows huddled beneath a flimsy piece of cardboard. An elderly woman, her once proud shoulders now bent with age, knelt beside an overturned waste bin. Her trembling fingers sorted through discarded food containers, searching for anything edible. Beside her, a small girl no older than 9 watched with wide, frightened eyes. "Go, please don't," the child whispered in Zulu, her voice breaking. "We can wait until morning." The old woman smiled weakly, rainwater streaming down her weathered face. "Hush, my precious one. When there is food, there is hope. God has not forgotten us." She lifted a half-eaten roll to her lips, and the little girl began to cry silently, her thin body shaking in the cold. Suddenly, headlights pierced the darkness. A silver Mercedes Maybach glided to a stop at the gate. The driver's door flew open, and a man in an expensive charcoal suit stumbled out, his face frozen in horror. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Mama? Linda?" His voice cracked like thunder. No. Thabo Mthembu ran through the rain, his Italian leather shoes splashing through puddles. He fell to his knees, gathering both figures into his arms, his body convulsing with sobs. "Why, Mama? Why are you eating from the rubbish? What kind of monster have I become?" His mother's frail hand touched his wet cheek. "My son, we were only hungry. Even what you throw away is sweeter than the emptiness in our stomachs." Her words, spoken with such gentleness, shattered something deep within him. His cries echoed through the rain-soaked street, a sound of pure anguish that would soon silence the hearts of millions. Thabo Mthembu's story began in the dusty township of Alexandra, where corrugated iron shacks stood pressed together like sardines in a tin. As a boy, he sold homemade ginger beer on street corners, his feet bare and his stomach often empty. But his mother, Nozifo, never let him lose hope. "One day, my son," she would say while stirring a thin pot of pap over a smoking fire, "you will build towers that touch the sky. But never forget the ground where you started." Through sheer determination and his mother's sacrifices, Thabo won a scholarship to university. She sold her only possession, a small piece of inherited land, to pay for his books and transport. Years later, he founded Mthembu Investments, a financial empire spanning mining, technology, and real estate. By age 40, Forbes called him the Lion of Africa. Politicians sought his counsel. Universities offered him honorary degrees. He owned properties in Dubai, London, and New York. But success had come at a price. His beloved wife, Thandai, died giving birth to their daughter, Linda. The grief nearly destroyed him. For months, he couldn't look at the baby without seeing his wife's face. It was his mother, Nozifo, who moved into his Sandton mansion and raised the child with boundless love. "She is Thandai's gift to you," Mama Nozifo would whisper, rocking the infant to sleep. "Don't let sorrow blind you to this miracle." Slowly, Thabo rebuilt himself. He poured his pain into his work, expanding his empire while his mother tended to his daughter. Each night, no matter how late, he would call home to hear Linda's voice and his mother's prayers. For 7 years, this was enough. Then came Nadia. She appeared at a charity gala, draped in crimson silk, her smile radiant under the chandeliers. A public relations consultant with an impressive portfolio, she approached Thabo with a proposal to enhance his company's image through strategic philanthropy campaigns. But it was more than business that drew him in. Nadia spoke eloquently about poverty alleviation and women's empowerment. She laughed at his jokes. She seemed genuinely interested in his vision for Africa's future. When she visited his home, she brought gifts for Linda and spoke respectfully to Mama Nozifo in halting Zulu. "She seems kind," his mother said cautiously one evening. "But watch carefully, my son. Not all who smile in the light remain true in the dark." Thabo dismissed her concerns. After 7 lonely years, he believed he'd found someone who understood his world, someone who could help him create a complete family for Linda. They married 2 years after meeting, in a lavish ceremony that made headlines across the continent. Mama Nozifo stood beside them, placing her weathered hands over theirs during the traditional blessing. "May you always remember where you come from," she prayed, tears glistening in her eyes. "May kindness rule this house." Nadia smiled beautifully, and everyone believed she meant it. At first, the changes were subtle. Nadia redecorated the mansion, replacing family photographs with abstract art. She hired a new staff, dismissing the longtime housekeeper who had been like family. She insisted on European cuisine, declaring traditional African dishes too heavy and unsophisticated. "We must present ourselves properly," she explained to Tabo, who was too preoccupied with business deals to notice the ice creeping into her voice. "We're hosting diplomats and international investors now." When Tabo traveled, which was often, Nadia's true nature emerged. She began speaking harshly to Mama Nozifo, criticizing everything from her clothing to her accent. "This is Santun, not Alexandra," she would snap. "Can't you at least try to look presentable?" Meals became battlegrounds. Nadia insisted on separate dining arrangements, relegating Mama Nozifo and Lindai to the kitchen while she entertained guests in the grand dining room. Their portions shrank to scraps, leftover rice, stale bread, watered-down soup. "Why can't we eat with the guests, Gogo?" little Lindai would ask, her stomach growling. "We must not disturb your stepmother's important work," Mama Nozifo would reply gently, though her heart broke with each passing day. She thought about telling Tabo, but each time she picked up the phone, guilt stopped her. He was working so hard, carrying so many responsibilities. How could she add to his burdens? Surely this was just a difficult adjustment period. Surely Nadia's heart would soften. But darkness, once given permission, only grows deeper. 6 months into the marriage, the mansion had transformed into a place of quiet terror. Nadia threw extravagant parties several times a week. The sound of clinking champagne glasses and sophisticated laughter filled the halls while grandmother and granddaughter hid in the back quarters, surviving on kitchen scraps and whispered prayers. One evening, when Lindai had a fever, Mama Nozifo dared to approach Nadia's guest to request medicine from the first aid kit. Nadia's smile vanished. In front of everyone, she said coldly, "The child can wait. We don't interrupt important conversations for minor inconveniences." Humiliated, Mama Nozifo retreated. That night, she held the feverish child close, singing lullabies and praying for dawn. The emotional abuse escalated. Nadia locked the refrigerator. She threw away the traditional medicines and herbs Mama Nozifo used. She forbade them from using the main bathrooms or sitting on the expensive furniture. "You're making the leather smell like poverty," she sneered. Once, Lindai accidentally knocked over a vase while trying to reach a book on high shelf. Nadia's rage was terrifying. She grabbed the child's arm so tightly that bruises formed, screaming about disrespect and worthlessness. "Your mother died because even God didn't want her," she shrieked. Mama Nozifo pulled Lindai away, shielding her with her body. "Please, my child. She's only 9 years old. Don't call me my child," Nadia hissed. "I'm not your child. And she," pointing at Lindai, "is nothing but a burden on this family." From that night on, grandmother and granddaughter spoke only in whispers, afraid that any sound might trigger another explosion. Meanwhile, Tabo's video calls home showed only carefully staged scenes. Nadia would position herself perfectly in frame, with Mama Nozifo and Lindai visible in the background, all smiling. "Everything's wonderful here," she would chirp. "Your mother made her famous chakalaka today, and Lindai got top marks in school." Behind the camera, the truth was invisible. The way Mama Nozifo's hands shook from hunger, the dark circles under Lindai's eyes, the fear that had become their constant companion. "Tell Daddy," Lindai would sometimes whisper after the calls ended. "He's so far away, my precious," Mama Nozifo would reply, her voice heavy with resignation. "And he has the weight of the world on his shoulders. We must be strong." So they endured. Tabo, drowning in negotiations in Singapore, Dubai, and New York, believe his family was safe and happy. He saw only what Nadia wanted him to see: a thriving household, a devoted wife, a perfect life. He didn't know that his mother had started losing weight dangerously. He didn't know that Linda had stopped laughing. He didn't know that the two people he loved most had become prisoners in their own home. It was a Thursday evening when Johannesburg's winter arrived with unexpected fury. Thabo was finishing a 3-month circuit through Europe and Asia, closing the biggest merger of his career. As his private jet descended through storm clouds toward Tambo International, exhaustion weighed on him like lead. But something else pulled at his heart, a nameless anxiety he couldn't shake. "Take me home," he told his driver. "Don't call ahead. I want to surprise them." The Mercedes glided through rain-slicked streets. Traffic was light. They arrived at the Sandton estate just after 10 o'clock. What Thabo saw through the rain stopped his heart. There, illuminated in the headlights like a nightmare made real, his mother knelt beside an overturned rubbish bin. Her clothes were soaked through, revealing how frighteningly thin she'd become. Her hands, the same hands that had once worked 3 jobs to feed him, now sorted through garbage. Beside her, little Linda stood shivering, holding a piece of cardboard over her grandmother's head in a futile attempt to shield her from the rain. The child was crying. Go, please. Let's go back. I'm not hungry anymore. Just a little more, my heart," Mama Nozifo whispered. "I found some bread that's not too wet." Time fragmented. Thabo couldn't process what he was seeing. This couldn't be real. Not his mother. Not his child. Not in front of his own house. He exploded from the car, running blindly through the rain. "Mama. Linda." He collapsed beside them, pulling them both into his arms with such force they gasped. His expensive suit soaked through instantly, but he felt nothing except the sharp, unbearable pain of understanding. "Who did this to you?" he choked out. Who? Linda buried her face in his chest, her small body racked with sobs. "Stepmother said we couldn't eat the good food. She locked everything away. Gogo came outside to find something for me because I was so hungry." Mama Nozifo touched her son's face with trembling fingers. "Don't be angry, my boy. We managed. We survived." But Thabo saw the truth in her sunken cheeks, in the way her bones pressed against her skin, in the defeat that had dimmed her once bright eyes. His mother, his hero, reduced to scavenging like an animal. Something inside him shattered completely. Thabo carried his mother in his arms and held Linda's hand as he walked through the mansion gates. Each step echoed with the weight of his rage and heartbreak. The house blazed with light. Inside, music played softly. Nadia's laugh tinkled like broken glass as she entertained guests in the sitting room, showing off her latest designer purchases on social media. "Welcome to my beautiful life," she was saying into her phone, filming a video, "where family and love come first." The front door slammed open. Everyone turned. Thabo stood there, soaked, his mother cradled against his chest, his daughter clinging to his side. Water pooled on the marble floor. His eyes burned with an intensity that made the guests shrink back. "Get out," he said quietly to the visitors. "All of you. Now." They scrambled for the exit, sensing the coming storm. Nadia stood frozen, phone still in hand, her carefully made-up face turning pale. "Thabo, when did you?" "Shut your mouth." The coldness in his voice made her flinch. He gently set his mother on the sofa, wrapping her in a throw blanket. He knelt before Linda, examining her thin arms, the bruises, the fear in her eyes that no child should know. "Go upstairs and pack everything you need," he told his daughter softly. "You and Gogo are leaving with me tonight." Then he turned to Nadia. "My mother," he said, each word deliberate as a hammer blow. "The woman who sold her only land so I could go to school. The woman who raised my daughter when I was drowning in grief. That woman was outside my house tonight, eating from the rubbish." Nadia's face crumpled. "I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you starved them. How you locked away food. How you made them sleep in the servants' quarters while you threw parties." His voice rose to a roar. "Explain how you bruised my daughter's arms." "I didn't mean," Nadia began sobbing. "I just wanted them to learn discipline, to respect this lifestyle." "Discipline?" Tabo's laugh was hollow and terrible. You want to talk about discipline? My mother worked her hands bloody to feed me. She walked 15 kilometers daily to clean rich people's houses so I could have school fees. And you dared to humiliate her. He grabbed the remote and turned on the television, pulling up the security camera footage he'd remotely accessed from the car. The screen filled with damning images. Nadia shoving Mama no Zifo, throwing food on the floor, screaming at Lindai, locking doors in their faces. The most heartbreaking moment showed Mama no Zifo holding a crying Lindai, whispering, "It's all right, my precious. Your father will come home one day and understand. Until then, we must be brave." Nadia fell to her knees. "Please, Tabo. I lost my way. I was jealous of how much you love them. I wanted to be the most important person in your life. Please give me another chance." He looked at her with something close to pity. "I thought poverty was the cruelest thing in the world, but I was wrong. The cruelest thing is having plenty and withholding it from those who have nothing. The cruelest thing is a heart that chooses to be empty." By midnight, the divorce papers were drawn up. Tabo's lawyers worked with surgical precision. Nadia would keep the Santon mansion and a settlement. He didn't care about the money. What he cared about was standing before a judge and ensuring that woman never came near his family again. "I'm not interested in revenge," he told his lawyers. "I just want them safe." 3 days later, Tabo moved his mother and daughter to a modest house in Soweto, not far from where he'd grown up. It had 3 small bedrooms, a garden where Mama no Zifo could plant vegetables, and a porch where they could sit together in the evenings. No marble, no chandeliers, no pretense, just home. The first morning in their new house, Tabo woke early and made breakfast himself, something he hadn't done in years. He scrambled eggs, made toast, brewed strong coffee, and set the table for 3. When Mama no Zifo shuffled into the kitchen, she stopped and stared. "What's this?" she whispered. "Breakfast, Mama. Sit." She sat slowly, tears already streaming down her face. Lindai ran in, climbed into her chair, and gasped at the spread before them. "Is this all for us, Baba?" "Every meal from now on," Tabo promised. "Every single one." They ate together in silence, except for the sounds of chewing and the occasional sniffle from Mama no Zifo, who couldn't stop crying. When they finished, Tabo took both their hands. "I want you to know something," he said. "I climbed to the top of the world, and I thought that made me successful. But I was wrong. Success isn't money or buildings or power. Success is this: sitting with the people you love, sharing a meal, and knowing everyone is safe and fed and loved." Mama no Zifo squeezed his hand. "You learn, my son. That's what matters. Some people never learn." What Tabo didn't expect was for the world to find out. A journalist investigating corruption in domestic worker treatment had obtained the security footage through a source. When the images aired on national television, a billionaire's mother eating from trash, a child's bruised arms, the stark contrast between glittering parties and hidden suffering, South Africa erupted. The footage went viral across Africa and then globally. Within days, millions had watched. Hashtag Justice for Mama no Zifo trended worldwide. Newspapers ran headlines. Billionaire's mother found starving while wife partied, and the price of forgetting where you come from. But what moved people most wasn't the scandal. It was the image captured by paparazzi a week later. Tabo walking through a Soweto market, holding his mother's hand on one side and Lindau's on the other, all 3 laughing as they bought vegetables. No bodyguards, no fancy cars, just a man who'd remembered what mattered. Letters poured in from across the continent. A woman in Kenya wrote, "My mother worked 3 jobs to raise me. Your story reminded me to call her today." A man in Ghana, "I've been too busy for my children." Not anymore. Tabo didn't seek attention. He gave one interview, and only because he hoped it might help others. "I almost lost everything because I stopped paying attention," he said. "I thought providing money was enough. But love isn't something you can deposit in a bank account. It's in the meals you share, the conversations you have, the time you spend together." The interviewer asked, "What would you say to others in similar situations?" Tabo's eyes grew distant. "Look closely at your home. Really look. See who is suffering while you're not watching. And if you find pain where you expected happiness, don't make excuses. Act." Because the people who love you won't always cry out loud. Sometimes they suffer in silence, believing they're protecting you. 6 months later, Tabo announced the launch of the Nozifo Foundation, named after his mother. Its mission was simple: to provide support for vulnerable elders and children, particularly those overlooked by their own families. The foundation would offer food security programs, legal aid for domestic abuse victims, and emergency housing. Too many grandmothers are raising children alone because the parents are working or have passed away, Tabo explained at the launch. And too many of them are forgotten, treated as burdens instead of the treasures they are. The foundation's logo was a simple image: 2 hands clasping, one young and one old. Mama Nozifo attended the launch, wearing a beautiful traditional dress. When asked to speak, she approached the microphone hesitantly. "I don't have fancy words," she began in Zulu, which was translated for the international audience. "But I want to say this: what happened to me happens to many grandmothers. We stay quiet because we don't want to burden our children. We accept suffering because we think we must." Her voice grew stronger. "But no elder should eat from rubbish. No child should go hungry while there is food in the house. And no person should ever be made to feel worthless because they are old or young or poor." The audience rose in a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. Time, as always, brought healing and perspective. Tabo continued running his businesses, but he restructured everything. He stopped taking trips longer than 3 days. He attended every school event for Lindayo. He had breakfast with his mother every morning, without exception. The modest Soweto house became a gathering place. On weekends, neighborhood children would come and play with Lindayo. Mama Nozifo cooked massive pots of food, her famous umkasho, fetcook, and chakalaka, feeding anyone who came to the door. "This is what a home should be," Tabo said one Sunday afternoon, watching his mother serve food to a dozen laughing children in the garden, full of noise and life and love. Lindayo, now 14, had grown into a thoughtful young woman. She volunteered at the foundation every week, helping to coordinate meal deliveries to elderly people living alone. "Gogo taught me something important," she told her father one evening. "She taught me that dignity isn't about what you have. It's about how you treat others, especially when no one is watching." As for Nadia, she had disappeared from public life. Tabo heard she'd moved to Cape Town, working in a small marketing firm. He felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only a lingering sadness for what could have been if she'd chosen differently. Sometimes he wondered if she ever thought about that rainy night, about the moment her mask fell away and revealed the emptiness beneath. But mostly, he didn't think about her at all. On a quiet Tuesday evening, 5 years after leaving the Santon mansion, Tabo sat on the porch with his mother, watching Lindayo practice dance moves in the garden. The air smelled of rain. It would storm soon. But they were safe inside, together, with food in the cupboards and love in the air. "Mama," Tabo said softly, "do you remember what you told me when I was young? That I would build towers touching the sky." She nodded, her silver hair glowing in the fading light. "You were wrong," he continued. "The towers meant nothing. This," he gestured to the small house, the garden, his daughter twirling in the grass. "This is the only thing worth building." Mama Nozifo smiled, the deep peace of someone who'd walked through fire and emerged on the other side. "I was never wrong, my son. I said you would build towers. I never said you'd find happiness in them." Thunder rumbled in the distance. Lindayo ran toward them, laughing. "It's going to rain. Come inside." The 3 of them gathered in the small kitchen. Tabo reheated leftovers, good leftovers, made with love, meant to be saved and enjoyed again. They ate together at the worn wooden table, passing dishes and telling stories from their day. Through the window, rain began to fall, gentle this time, washing the world clean. "Baba," Lindayo said between bites, "Gogo told me that you used to cry in the rain when you were little." Tabo looked at his mother in surprise. She smiled mischievously. "I did," he admitted. "When I was sad or scared, I'd go outside in the rain so no one could see my tears." "Do you still do that?" his daughter asked. He thought about it. "No. Now, when I'm sad, I come home. Because home is where we don't have to hide our tears." Later that night, after Lindai had gone to bed, Mama Nozifo and Tabo sat in the living room drinking rooibos tea. "I need to tell you something, my son," she said quietly. "What is it, Mama?" "While I was outside that night, eating from the rubbish, I prayed. I prayed that you would come home, that you would see, that you would remember who you were before the money and the success." Her eyes filled with tears, and God answered, "He brought you home to us. Not just that night, but truly home, to yourself, to what matters." Tabo knelt beside her chair, resting his head in her lap like he'd done as a child. "Thank you for never giving up on me," he whispered. She stroked his hair. A mother never gives up on her child. Never. The story of Tabo Mthembu spread far beyond South Africa's borders. In boardrooms across Africa, executives began questioning their priorities. In homes throughout the world, grown children called their aging parents. In schools, Tabo's story became a case study in the true meaning of success. Universities invited him to speak. He always accepted, but never about business strategy. Instead, he talked about compassion, about seeing the invisible people in our lives, about the danger of letting ambition blind us to love. "I was so busy conquering the world," he told a packed auditorium in Nairobi, "that I didn't see the war happening in my own home. I thought providing financially was enough. But people need more than money. They need presence. They need dignity. They need to be seen." A young entrepreneur in the audience asked, "How do you balance business success with family? Surely there are sacrifices." Tabo smiled. "Yes, there are sacrifices. I sacrifice meaningless meetings. I sacrifice ego-driven deals. I sacrifice the illusion that I have to be everywhere and do everything." He paused. "But I don't sacrifice moments with my daughter. I don't sacrifice meals with my mother. Because when I'm on my deathbed, I won't wish I'd closed one more deal. I'll wish I'd had one more breakfast with the people I love." The applause was thunderous. 10 years after that rainy night, Tabo celebrated his 50th birthday. He didn't want a party, but Mama Nozifo and Lindai insisted on a small gathering. Just family and close friends in the Soweto garden, with braai meat sizzling on the grill and children running through the grass. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Tabo stood with his arm around his mother, watching Lindai, now a university student studying social work, tell animated stories to her cousins. "I have everything," he said softly. Mama Nozifo, now in her 80s but still sharp and strong, patted his hand. "You always did, my son. You just forgot for a while." Later, after the guests had left and the dishes were washed, the three of them sat on the porch in their usual spots. No words were needed. They simply existed together, breathing the same air, sharing the same space, grateful for the gift of ordinary days. In the distance, thunder rumbled. "Rain's coming," Lindai observed. "Good," Tabo said. "I love the rain now." "Why?" his daughter asked. He looked at his mother, then at Lindai. "Because rain washes things clean. It reminds us that even after the darkest storms, the world becomes new again. And it reminds me of the night I finally woke up. When the rain came, they didn't go inside. They sat together on the porch, listening to the drops on the roof, watching the water bring life to the garden. And in that moment, surrounded by the two people who mattered most, Tabo understood the truth that had taken him half a lifetime to learn. Home was never a mansion or a business empire or a bank account. Home was this, sitting in the rain with your mother's hand in yours and your daughter's laughter in your ears, knowing that everyone was safe, fed, loved, and together. That was the only wealth that mattered. That was the only tower worth building. And that was the truth that broke the world's heart and then, slowly, began to heal it.